Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson. Thanks for joining me for my weekly guitar blog. It's March 23rd, 2014, and this week we're going to do a lesson discussing 4 secrets of the natural minor scale. And we're going to have some fun with this. This week's question was sent in from Pete. He's out in Merritt Island, Florida, and he wrote in with this email: I hope you can help me with some suggestions for understanding more on how to use the natural minor scale. I've been practicing the patterns and I've been working on some soloing with it, but I feel that there must be more to using it. I almost feel like there are some secrets that I don't know. Andrew, any fresh ideas that I could use in my solo practice of the patterns would be excellent. From Pete in Merritt Island, Florida, USA. Well, hey, thanks for writing in, Pete. You know, any scale, including the natural minor, will have its fair share of unique ways for developing it up to higher levels. And what can really help with the scale's overall development is when we begin seeing all kinds of ways that other guitar players will use the scale to either play a solo or in an instrumental melody. Now, from noticing how other guitarists might phrase their lines, double up on different scale tones for their passages, or even how they'll use other ideas that come from the scale, such as perhaps pentatonic and arpeggio patterns, we can begin to concentrate on new ways to use scales in our own playing. Now, let's zoom in on the neck and run through 4 interesting ways that you can start using one of the most popular scales in music. Well, the natural minor is without a doubt an extremely popular scale in our musical language. It's known as the relative minor of our basic major scale, and it makes up the foundation musically from which we apply the use of minor tonality when we compose. Now, in unlocking our first secret concept of the natural minor, I wanted to focus on something simple. And so we'll be analyzing the fingerboard patterns for this scale to discover similar scale tone layouts. And we can then use these similar shapes for both the line building of melodies and for important fretboard shapes while improvising. Now, in the first example melodic phrase I have, we'll examine 2 identical fingerboard shapes from the C natural minor. It's going to be the top portions actually of 6-string root C natural minor. And then we're going to move into the 3rd position for the other area. So both those layouts of notes are identical, and what we're going to do is we're going to perform over top of the 4th chord of the key of F minor, as well as the tonic chord of C minor. So we're going to actually track those 2 chords by way of identical shapes, and I've come up with a guitar lick idea to carry through both. It's going to go like this. That's going to cover the F minor, and then we're going to move down here with the exact same lick to cover the C minor. So that way we have both those chords covered. And I've got a loop going on the pedal. It's going to go like this. Now, in the next example, we'll be leaning into the direction of the use of pentatonic scales, but we'll be analyzing their application in a slightly different way than you're probably used to. Now, our line of thought will be based in the harmony of the scale, where we, of course, find minor chords built upon the 1st, the 4th, and the 5th steps of the scale's harmony, which wind up being the specific chords of C minor on the root, and then on the 4th chord it's F minor, then the 5 chord G minor, pulling us back to the root again. Now, off of each of these steps, we can construct different minor pentatonic scales because all these chords are in the overall harmony of the key. There they are on the 4th and 5th steps. So in the next example, I'll perform a pentatonic melody over the same F minor and C minor chords that we had from the first example. However, in doing so, I'm going to be using in order a C minor pentatonic scale, covering the F minor chord. And then when we head over to the C chord, the C minor chord, I'm going to be using an F minor pentatonic and a G minor pentatonic. So basically the lick is going to cover the changes like this. So that's the guitar lick, and I'm going to throw the loop pedal on now so you can hear those chords in the background. Check it out. Okay, so far we've established how cool it can sound to discover how to apply very similar shapes throughout the natural minor scales, geometrical layouts, and there's various patterns along the neck, and then, of course, use them for melodic work. We've also seen how interesting it can sound to perform pentatonic lines built from each of the minor chord scale steps of the natural minor harmony. But next, I wanted to discuss an often overlooked strategy for guitar players. It's a simple one, but it's often overlooked. Either you can use it when you're soloing, or you can use it when you're working on creating instrumental guitar melodies or whatnot. The idea revolves around taking a melodic statement and transferring it either verbatim or slightly modified if you want into another octave range. So transferring either higher or lower to higher. In my example, I'll take a melody down an octave, played note for note, exactly the same. This is not only a great effect to use in a song, but it's also a simple one to apply if you're building an idea that's in an instrumental piece. You could use one section of it, maybe a verse section could be in a higher register, and then you could take it down, or you could flip them either way. It doesn't matter. Now, in my example, I'm going to play this again underneath those F minor chord to C minor chord ideas that I had in the jam, and the line is going to go like this. It's going to start higher, and then we're going to transfer it lower. So starting higher and lower. Okay, let's get a backing track going on here, and we'll hear how this sounds over the F minor and C minor chords. In my final example, I wanted to cover the excellent sounds available from the use of arpeggios, but once again, not in the typical manner as you might expect. Normally, we would just generally apply an arpeggio covering the same chord quality, which, I guess would mean if we were performing over an F minor chord, well, we would just basically use an F minor arpeggio. If we were performing over a C minor chord, just use C minor arpeggio, right? But, it's logical, makes sense. It only gets you so far, however. So in the final example of these secrets for the natural minor, what we're going to do instead is apply the parent major scale's tonic chord arpeggio over top of this C minor riff. So that's going to be, if you're not familiar with relative major and minor, the relative major scale of C minor is actually E flat major. So what we're going to be doing is performing an E flat major 7 arpeggio over top of the sounds of C natural minor in this chord progression. It's a really interesting sound that's basically easy to apply, and one that I think you can immediately start using as a system over any minor or even major chord progression. Just flip them relative chord to chord. So let's say if you were in this key of C major, let's say, and then that relative minor is A minor, so you could use A minor arpeggios over top of the C major progression, and then vice versa. If you're in the key of A minor, you could use C major 7 arpeggios over top of that A minor progression. You just keep flipping them. It's all relative. D minor would be F major. You just keep working them through. G minor would be B flat major. As long as you know your relative keys, you can really put this stuff to work in effective ways. So here's how the E flat major 7 arpeggio is going to sound performed over that same F minor to C minor riff that we've been using for the previous example so far. So here's what it's going to sound like. This is the arpeggio idea. Here it is again. All right, and I'll just pop the loop pedal on so you can hear those chords in the background. Check it out. All right, now let's just have some fun with this. We'll wrap up by mixing and matching a lot of these ideas and just kind of jam out over that same progression. Here we go. Well, you know, when it comes to using scales, most guitar players stick with the standard approach of endlessly trying to invent melodies using the exact scale tied to the exact key that their chord progression is in. So if the progression is in the key of C minor, they'll use C minor scale. Now, however, as you've now had a chance to learn from this video, there's much more to it than that. You know, there's simple ways of just experimenting with the geometry of the scale tones. We can also, of course, reorganize phrases into other octaves, you know, either higher or lower with the exact same types of phrases, or we could slightly modify them. And we can also, of course, work with similar tonality chord scale steps and apply, like we saw, different pentatonic shapes using the formulas. And by the way, you could do the same thing with arpeggios. And of course, speaking of arpeggios, to top it all off, there's all kinds of options for mismatching those arpeggios. And so any way you slice it, these combinations offer us tons of possibilities and of course lots of room for having tons of fun practicing improvisation. Anyway, that's about all the time I have for today. As always, thanks for watching. Have yourself a great week and I'll catch up with you next time. Bye for now.